what was your experience with Goosebumps like prior to being cast in the show? Were you a fan of the previous show, the books? Where were you at with that?
Yeah, I think it was always a part of the cultural consciousness to kind of begin with, but I do remember being in elementary school and middle school and kind of looking around the classroom and seeing people with the different covers and people reading the books um I remember reading a few of the books myself. So it was I had sort of that understanding of Goosebumps, but then upon doing the show, I think my excitement to be a part of this universe and like my excitement about the lore only deepened because the books and the stories are so rich and really really creative. So it felt like every episode I was learning about something very niche in like a Goosebumps book that one of our writers had read, and um, so yeah, it's very cool to continue learning more about like such a great series.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely grew up with the Goosebumps books as well. I was a little emo kid, so I think reading something scary and a bit macabre was kind of the foundation for that essence of my personality growing up. And I mean, I feel like it's everyone's training wheels for being interested in like so much horror and like everything that's out there in that genre.
100%.
I think for me, as we are aware, that Goosebumps is a real, it's a real legacy piece. You know, I was around it. I think we was all around it growing up. For me, growing up in the UK in primary school, which elementary school, we had there was always Goosebumps books on the shelves in the library, and the cover art, like I've said before, was something that always stands out to you, as well as the incredible story. So yeah, I was, whether you're directly consuming it by reading it or whether you're just seeing it, it was always around. So yeah, I was definitely exposed to Goosebumps before joining the show.
Awesome. And Miles, throughout the show a couple times, you get to play both a regular version of your character and also this kind of freaky doppelganger who's very different. So what was it like playing those two very different portrayals?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. That was like so exciting. I was really fortunate to be able to show a lot of range in a short amount of time. We only have like 30, 40, 50 minutes to like tell a story. So to be able to do that was incredible. And it was like such like a movie moment to really film. I mean, like a lot of those dupe scenes, I was working with green screens and tennis balls. I'm like on, tethers, and there's like 9 stunt doubles that are all in like my wigs and my makeup, and like it was just like such a team effort to put this together. I remember when Rob Letterman, one of our executives, like told me, well, first of all, what he told me was like, okay, we're trying to figure out how to do this because the problem is there's a bunch of Jameses. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a problem, that sounds like a solution. A bunch of James in the episode, period. That's great. But yeah, it was something that all of us were really dialed in to make it believable and grounded, and something to really bring the scare.
The rocks. And Zach, you really sold that brutal injury at the start of the show. What was it like to film that really intense scene there on the field?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, man. So that was something that we did very early on. And it was the kind of pinnacle point of a crazy schedule and a crazy episode. So that moment in particular, like playing pain, like real genuine pain for me, is always I don't want to say fun to do, but it's putting yourself in that place is always a nice challenge. So and being chased by zombies is pretty dope too. And the way we kind of did that, I did one take where a few supporting artists had full prosthetics, they had the full makeup on, and they had like a routine where they were kind of following me, and then we would do an empty plate where it was just myself running, pretending to dodge all these things. So just a whole lot of adrenaline and a whole lot of CGI made it the kind of spectacle that it is.
That's awesome. And Will, like obviously the giant worms are CG, but were there a lot of scenes where you were actually getting hands-on with the worms? And if so, what was that like to film?
There was a worm wrangler on set, which I didn't know. So there was a guy that like came on set and was like the same way that you'd have like someone join with like a snake. There was like a worm wrangler. So most of the worms were CGI. Like the giant worm was a grip with a tennis ball. Um, but there was one instance in which my hand is actually in the worms and they didn't even use it. Um, it was a scene at the Halloween party when I was sort of playing with the worms on my fingers. And they ultimately went for a shot where it's just them in the cup. But when you see them on my body and crawling out of the tank, that's all really, really good CGI.
Sick. And you know, Miles and Zach, there's a lot of scenes where you two are really playing best pals. So how naturally did that chemistry come once you started filming?
Yeah, Zach, how naturally did that come when we started filming?
The most difficult thing I've had to do in my career.
What did you say to me in when we rapped, we all gave each other cards, and he said something like, you know, I didn't know I was this good of an actor until I had to. It was something like something. He was like, I'm such a like, man, we really like we're best friends.
You know what? I love this guy, man. I love this guy from day one. We just clicked. I think for us, always the main purpose was we want to make this moment as good as we can make it. So when you have two people with a real objective and a real care and a real love for something, you're naturally going to connect. As well, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met, so that helps. So when I need to laugh and there's moments where I'm finding him funny, like I'm not acting there, like it's genuinely funny, and I'm trying not to break. So yeah, it was a real pleasure getting to meet
girl, you stop. No, I leaned on this man so hard during the duration of this filming, and it was really cool where like, you know, in the auditioning process, I did all my test reads with many different actors that were, you know, set to play Isaiah. And so, you know, ultimately, you know, Zach was cast and I didn't meet him and we didn't specifically work together until we're on set. You know, like the first time we did a scene together was when the cameras were rolling, and it was something like so powerful because we both, you know, like Zach said, wanted to make this something really cool and special. And we both, like, day one, scene one, we're just throwing stuff out there and really trying to play and really trying to bring ourselves, you know, to the characters. And to throw something and then have someone catch it and throw it back to you, it was like really immediately, it was like, oh, this is gonna be so fun, you know? And I think when we first met, it was at Anna's apartment. And you walked through the door, and the first thing I said to you was like, you're British. You're British. Yeah.
You're British.
You're British. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, we all got so close during the duration of filming, and it's just like been an absolute blast.
That's great to hear. And Will, you also have some really great scenes with Rachel Harris, especially when you two were talking about your dad in the show. So what was it like to film those really strong scenes together?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything as an actor, like it always kind of boils down to like trust and like, you know, vulnerability. And, you know, I think Rachel and I don't want to speak for Rachel, but I think we immediately felt very comfortable with each other. And, you know, talking about, you know, my own mother, and, you know, I think she has, you know, kids, and talking about her kids. And, you know, I think we immediately established a rapport, and uh, both felt very safe acting with each other. And I think we both understood the scene and the scenes. And you know, she's such a giving scene partner, and is always there to make it the best that it can be. And that's kind of all you can ask for. Just someone that's immensely present, and really always looking to do like amazing work. She's also hilarious and very fun to work with. And we got some really great writing, and really got the chance to get into stuff. So very grateful.
Sick. And Zach, I gotta ask, Justin Long is such a master of horror and humor. What was it like to how fun was it to work alongside him in the show?
Justin Long is incredible, man. Like you said, he is our. It was a real blessing. And I got to work with Justin. I think it was my third day of shooting. That was the first time we worked together. And like I said in a previous interview, the scene that you're seeing on screen, how they pieced that together, I don't know, because we were improvising for our lives. But, but for me, like to feel kind of settled enough to be able to do that requires a scene partner who is kind of giving a handout to you to let you be able to do that. And where he would take a scene, you're coming back at that and you're ending up somewhere completely different, but somehow it still works. And then he's the master of bringing it back to where it needs to be, to then going somewhere else, and then you're going on this journey with him. But I feel very, very, very blessed to be able to do that.
That's incredible. And Miles, your characters are really great impassioned line about being, one of 6 gay people in a very small town. So what were your first thoughts when you saw that line in the script, and what was performing that like?
Oh yeah, I mean, thanks for asking. It was just like so incredible, and like, major props go out to the writers and producers, Nick Stoller and Rob Letterman for, you know, really creating such an impactful queer storyline for James. And I think, one reason why it makes it really impactful is because it's one that centers a gay person's struggle, but not a gay person's trauma. Like he's navigating a universal struggle that I think everyone can relate to, which was, feeling confident in himself. And so, having, or really allowing an audience to like see themselves in a queer person is only going to do good in the world. And, hopefully allow people to be a bit kinder to the Jameses that they see in their real life. But yeah, it was really just so amazing to have that finale moment in episode 3. Outside of like the dupes and everything that was action, to really like have a moment with your best friend and be like, we need to see each other.
Definitely. And my last question, Will, Lucas in the later episodes seems to take the events of all the Slappy incident the hardest. So how did you go about portraying that sense of sort of unresolved trauma?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I'd say the biggest thing is that you can find a touchstone of how, as a person, you maybe have processed something difficult, or maybe in my own life when I've been in a situation where I can't quite, shake a feeling, or an emotion just keeps coming up. I think the anxiety of things not seeming quite right is a very identifiable feeling as an actor. And then when you couple that with really great situations that you've been put in by the writers, it makes things a lot easier, because all of a sudden you're not acting in a vacuum. You go, okay, well, if this happened to me, like, how might I react? And then all of a sudden your suspension of disbelief sort of takes hold. And like, at least for me, like, all I had to do was sort of imagine, like, well, had these things happened to me, I'd probably not be doing well. So I think, as an actor, like, you just do your best to put yourself in that place, and channel those emotions, and then lean on good writing and good scene partners to kind of carry you through it. But I hope that people watch Lucas in the latter part of the show, and see that this is someone that, sure, he's been tormented by a dummy and by a ghost, but anyone that struggles with like trying to move through trauma, like they're not alone in that. That's why I watch things. It's when you're watching the screen and you go, oh my gosh, like I've felt like that before, how did they know? So granted, it's very heightened, but I hope the emotions ring true.